Hi, I'm Tim Zacharias with Cougar USA and your host of Building Value. My guests today are Jim Zirbel he's the chairman of the board, and Carolyn McGary, who's the national director of FM Pipeline and the Facilithon. Thank y'all so much for joining me on today's show.
Happy to be here, Tim. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Well, on this episode, I'm really excited. We're going to be talking about the next generation of FM and what FM Pipeline and the Facilithon is doing to help solve our problems and shortages to come.
On Building Value, we go behind the scenes of building operations to showcase the people and products that make buildings work and the value they bring to the community.
So, Carolyn, can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up?
I kind of grew up a little all over the place. So my family moved around quite a bit. Actually, not from the military, even though my dad was Navy. I think I was born in Iowa. I've lived in Missouri on one side. I lived in Missouri on the Kansas side, and then I lived in Kansas. I'm a bit of a Midwest baby, and then I moved to Colorado when I was in high school.
Nice. Very nice. And so what about after high school? What did you end up doing there, and how did you kind of get into this industry?
So after high school, I was encouraged to go to college, like most millennials were. And I went local, stayed in town, lived with my parents until I graduated college.
Nice.
But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to graduate from college and be the first in my family to do so. And it took until my junior year to find a facility management program. And so I graduated from an actual FM program.
Very cool. Yeah, it seems to be something that we're seeing more popular, I guess, in kind of colleges and things like that. So I've been able to work with Texas A&M a little bit in their FM program. So that's really cool. So got your degree and then jumped straight into an FM role?
I had an FM role, kind of, those internships. So I was working with a Pikes Peak chapter member in his organization. And then when I graduated, I hadn't found anything else yet. And so I did the other common millennial thing and went out and got a master's degree in project management. And that got me a project management job with the federal government. So I took a tiny detour for like 3 years, and then I went back into facility management.
Very cool. Okay. This is a little bit different path, but always good to have the extra education there. So that's cool. So Jim, haven't forgot about you over there. What can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you got into facilities management?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I still live in the state, by the way, where in the winter it's cold and we snowmobile and ski and do stuff like that to keep moving, right? Keep from that cabin fever. And then in the summer we've got great weather and boating season, as we were talking about earlier today. I found my way into the FM space really through a number of companies that I started that were involved in providing services and systems and products to those people. And on various levels, I was involved in building automation. I had owned a fairly good size security company that did electronic security stuff. And then Capcom intercoms, the world's first wireless big building intercom thing. So I've always been in systems and services that have been adjacent to that. I myself am not a facility manager. I'm a startup guy, right, Carolyn? I am a startup guy. So that's where that came from. And that really evolved through business and then my participation as an officer in an IFMA chapter.
Okay, sure. That, I have a similar kind of, I would say, affiliation with facilities management, and I'm not one myself, but we work with them on a regular basis and depend on them in a lot of ways for our kind of industry and business to continue. So definitely can appreciate that path into this facility management world. So both now with FM Pipeline, can you give me a little bit of background on what that organization is and kind of what y'all's roles are in that? Because I know it's been evolving. A lot of things have been changing over the last couple of years. So maybe kind of catch us up to where we are now.
So the program is a few years old now. Jim founded it, similar to a lot of his other startups. I was an early adopter, I want to say, and kind of just wormed my way in. Thanks, Jim. And for the last, say, 4 years or so, we've been co-directors. We've been, engaging with smart, talented, tech-leaning, buildings-related students out there in high schools, in colleges, etc. We've been enlightening them about the different qualities and opportunities there are in facilities management. And then we've been energizing them to think about this profession and this career path as their new career path moving forward, going into either college programs, looking for new jobs, that sort of thing in facilities management. This year in 2022, we were competing in 13 states. It's been really exciting for us. This was our first year as well as a national demonstration event. So this is a big deal in the space that we're in. We work with Skills USA as a program, and that seats us on kind of just a whole wellhead of talent. So just all these thousands of students that are out there, like I said, that are tech leaning, that are excited, that are smart, that are engaged, and we engage them about facilities management.
All right, so we've talked about it a little bit, but and I think there's probably a lot of definitions out there. But Jim, can you give me maybe your definition of what a facility manager is and kind of what they do?
Yeah, as you asked that question, I just have to laugh because we, the industry, have spent so much time trying to define what that is. You're doing something different every day. You get to be somebody's hero. You get paid well. You love your job. We define it as this: the liberal science of buildings. Why? Because it's everything, but it does kind of involve the built environment. And how do you convey that to an instructor? Well, that's one of the ways we did so, along with attribute identification, asking a few questions of the students. That kind of delves down our marketing channel and how we market in a relative vacuum of the CTSO space. But the liberal science of buildings is something we coined because we recognize that no one has really nailed it. And it was the closest estimate to, yeah, you're doing a little everything, but you're doing that, and it's kind of science.
It definitely sounds better than saying you wear a lot of hats.
Oh, that's not good. Because I wear a lot of hats anyway, because there's not a lot up there, buddy.
Awesome. Well, Carolyn, do you have anything to add on to that definition?
I just add our attributes. So, somebody says, what is facility management? You can't just give them maybe the academic definition, because the students aren't going to understand what it means to integrate people, process, place. They aren't going to understand about making things safe and comfortable. They might. And then instructors, they listen to that and they're like, well, how am I going to teach that? So we just say, hey, do you like people? Do you like buildings? Do you like thinking on your feet and problem solving? Do you want a job where every day is a little bit different? There's no day ever the same. You could be a good facility manager.
Yeah, it's a great way to describe it. And like you said, to say, well, you're making a building safe and comfortable. I mean, I think that's maybe an easy concept to understand, but probably extremely difficult to understand actually what goes into making that happen, especially when you're talking about a healthcare facility or a large school or university, things like that. It's just way more complicated than than anybody on a day-to-day basis probably would recognize.
Hey, and also I would also add to that that the Facilithon has done a really great job at what it's doing, partly because as Carolyn supports, we've addressed this with a high school student, not about so much about definitions, that's what you asked us about, but we actually approach it like a first date. Yeah, if a first date, if you start talking about barriers to entry and competencies, you're out and you're buying dinner, right? So ours is really a first date, and the 1 in 30 marketing program actually uses those attributes as Carolyn suggests, and they work like a charm. Those attributes we're talking about too, you can probably agree with us, Tim, that those attributes, if you say no to any one of those attribute statements, you're toast. You won't make it as a facility manager. And yet a large cadre, maybe even as much as 1 in 2 in the environment we're in, say yes to all 4 of those statements, which is really cool. It's a great first date.
No, it's great. And I got a chance to be a part of the competition here in Texas, and it was a lot of fun and definitely eye-opening to see everything that Skills USA and FM Pipeline, the Facilithon, has going on. But before we dive too much into that, I maybe want to talk a little bit more about why this is important and what the need is for that next generation. Jim, what kind of drove you to found the organization, and what ultimately are you trying to do?
That's a fair question. We originally created this program after a couple failed liaison programs that we used to fill a struggling college program in Wisconsin that we had created. And we recognized pretty clearly about 10 years ago that the industry as a whole didn't know how to talk to the next generation, and secondly, didn't have a vehicle with which to do so. And even if we came up with a good program in our town, it probably could never scale out because every school board is different. Our voice as a whole, we love to be loud and proud here, but our voice as an industry as a whole, despite being a $3 trillion industry, Carolyn, despite being that huge, our industry doesn't have a voice that's as loud as what I call the incumbent voices in the high school space. And to be honest and true, we can talk about all sorts of other incremental ways to bring people into the space, but nothing beats high school and middle school as an organic place to bring the next generation in. The next generation doesn't exist anywhere else. And we recognize this, and by partnering in the CTSO space, the Career Technical Student Organization Jacket Club space, it turns out that we had found the perfect model for that. And so we identified that and said, okay, this is a partner that we can work with that's successful in the space, already has a voice that's loud enough to be heard. And the students, that I think the key factor here is, Tim, the students are already here.
Yep.
They're already in the space. They are already tech leaning. They are already built environment oriented. They're here. And we're not, and I can also speak to, we're not worried about going to a high school career exploration class and saying, oh, I'm a facility management person, this is great. All that really does is make you and me feel good about what we do and make us feel like we know something. But the students going, what are you talking about? The Facilithon has changed that dynamic radically, and you got to experience it, didn't you?
Absolutely. It's a great competition and a lot of fun. Like I said, I was blown away at how many students were there, how serious they take the competitions and the pride they take in that work. And I thought it was really cool that you kind of had this almost like a profile of what a facility manager is or would look like in terms of like their attitude, if they like problem solving, things like that. And ultimately, I think you're laying out or trying to attract those certain types of people into this field of work. And I think it all kind of goes back to this idea that, I mean, you said as long as 10 years ago, but that we're getting to a place where we have people leaving this field and not enough coming in behind them, right? And so ultimately, the goal with the Facilithon and with FM Pipeline is to get all, to attract new people into this industry, so that we can keep going to buildings and hospitals and schools and all of these things, and have a place to do and enjoy all of those things, right?
Yeah, and Tim, I think it's also important that we enunciate what that competition is, what our program actually is at this point.
Sure.
It makes sense. Since you participated in it, you know that even the students that took it the first time came walking away. They walked away saying, "Wow, this is really cool. This is a really cool job. I can see earning 100K doing this gig." So it includes a common sense test quiz, really 50 questions of questions like, hey, if the lights go off the gymnasium and none of the switches work, where do you go next? Questions that a high school student can understand, and that builds kind of a framework, walls around what that job might be, because they've never even heard of the job, right? And then they get a role play case study of the story about a building, a property with something going on, that they got to come up with their best ideas and give them to some judges and share their ideas, which is kind of an interplay. They like that. And then that third part, Tim, that you can identify with, which is the FM challenge, the emergency, that they only get 2 minutes to basically read it, freak out, stand up and present and say, call the fire department, get the janitor crew out there, figure out what's going on with that plumbing system, and get a new pump from Tim.
Yes, we play that game every day. So it is really cool. And Carolyn, maybe you could talk a little bit about the kind of the game that played out this year, and how came up with that and the response you got back from some of the participants. And then I'm happy to add in my experience as well.
Sure. So at nationals, so this was our first year as a national demonstration. It means that all the students get to see it out in the hallway. They get to come to we had a booth and experience at least a piece of what the facility management is, and what the Facilithon might look like if they were to do it in their state or do it this coming year. We built together a VR program, or basically one of our supporters this year put together a VR program for us in a concert hall. So an actual concert hall. They were able to adapt it to the Facilithon, and the students were able to walk through kind of like a video game. Walked through like a video game, and were able to, along the pathways, find different things that were wrong in the building. And so the way we built it in is they read basically a facility challenge, and saw the challenge, said, hey, this lock to the backstage looks broken. It's not securing. What do you do? People can just go backstage and harass people. What would be the first thing you do? What kind of resources do you need? And what could you do to prevent this from happening again? And a lot of, I want to say close to 400 people that we actually recorded came through. We probably had at least double that didn't actually enter any of their information, but come through the booth, experience that, and gave us a lot of great feedback. I think all of them really loved it. Right, Jim?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also I think on the strategic level too, Tim, you got to appreciate this. That derivative of that national conference and our national demonstration status, which is the 3 years in the sun. It's a big deal. That while we're in 13 states now, which is big, it's not tiny, that we're going to be in something approaching 20 states next year. And that growth, not only geographically, Tim, but demographically, in that we're also we're starting to delve into the post-secondary space and the middle school space.
Very
so
cool.
the body of the program continues to grow, and so out of it, as an outcome out of that, It's a really big deal. And when you consider that this is basically an untapped, huge wellhead that it's there, and our job is to build that out. We'll need to talk to you about a couple extra booster pumps, and those booster pumps include college programs. It includes industry with internships and job shadows and things of that nature, where our students now need a place to go.
Yep.
Well, that's a great problem, buddy. What do you think about that, Carolyn?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that part that we have all of this growth coming this coming year, really over the next 2 years. But in this coming year, we're really anticipating that growth. And as a result of that, I said we've been co-directors the last few years. As a result of that, though, we've been doing a little bit of restructuring internally for ourselves. So Jim is now the chairman of the board. So our governance board going to help with governance, guidance, all of that. And then I'm taking over as our national director. So I'll be managing the program itself and the operations and what all of that looks like.
Kudos.
And it really opens everything up, or really opens up for a lot of places for new volunteers to enact their passion with us. So things like getting onto our liaison teams, or being local champions, local or state champions for this program in their state, even positions on our national team. So there's a lot of opportunities opening up for students and volunteers alike.
Yeah, in particular also, for as I think about that, for employers and for vendors like yourself and myself, Tim, as vendor organizations to assist this industry in solving what I believe to be potentially the built environments problem of the century.
Yeah, it's no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, smart buildings and all of these kind of advances in the technology in the building. And Jim, you probably are familiar with a lot of those, given your background and everything you've got going on. But, ultimately, you're still going to need somebody in the building, right? You're still going to need somebody there to be that facility manager that can handle those problems on site, make those sort of decisions. And so, we can maybe reduce the amount of people that is needed, but ultimately it's going to take people at the end of the day to make these buildings work. So I absolutely agree that it's going to be an issue if we can't find those people that want to be in this, that fit that mold of the facility manager that we talked about, and recruit them into kind of this hidden gem of an industry that is everywhere around us. People are, we're in and out of buildings all the time and don't really think about what it takes to make all of that happen. But ultimately we want to keep that going. So I would agree that it's a massive issue that, that we're seeing. And it's not just limited to facility managers. I mean, it's a lot of the skilled trades are seeing the same thing. And it's why, organizations like Skills USA are doing what they're doing. And it's great to be able to be kind of partnered up with them, with the national demonstration, to be able to tap into their efforts.
Hey, and with that, and speaking of tapping into that too, let's also share that the problem that we're experiencing is a now thing, right? It's not a future state. It's not something that's going to be happening another 5 or 10 years. We're going to have a problem. The problem's now, right? It's exasperated. Everybody knows the Great Resignation sped the retirement up of a large cadre of facility management professionals.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the really cool thing, folks. Our program already has students coming out of our program that want to go somewhere. I think they probably want to go to your company. They want to go to that school down the road. And so if you are one of those entities, this is a great organization to join. Remember, we're a charity, or 501c3, doing this out of the goodness of our hearts for the industry as a whole. And those students, they already exist, and we'll be sure to share with you some video of some of those national finalists and some of those winners. Mm-hmm. At the local level, at the district level, the regional, state, and national level, those students are just on fire, and they are so bright.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, it was really cool with the Texas competition to see how quickly the kids where there's students, say the kids, not that old, but they all look a lot younger now, right? Like they seem like kids, but so they're the students, the high school students. They like how quickly we're on their feet to, come up with, creative solutions to some of these problems. They were, given some answers of it. I was like, wow, I never would have thought of that. So it's just really cool to see them kind of process the information differently, how they would attack the problem, what they came up with, and then, throwing the additional challenge at them. It was really cool to see, how they would solve the problem. So it definitely is something that is engaging and that they were, excited about, like you said. So it was really cool to see that. And then, unfortunately didn't make it to nationals, but seeing all the video and hearing everything from y'all looked like a really, really awesome event.
It sure was. It sure was. And it's resplendent of what we're going to be experiencing from here on out. It's catching fire and taking hold, and that's really good thing for the FM industry as a whole, that somebody actually is noticing, and that it's somebody that's under the age of 18 noticing. It's about time we got there. It's good.
Yep, absolutely. So Carolyn, you mentioned a little bit about the kind of the reorganization or the new structure that FM Pipeline has. Can you maybe expand on some of the places where you're looking for new volunteers, or you have opportunities for volunteers to get involved?
Yeah, so there's opportunities for all levels of interest, right? In engaging, enlightening, and energizing the next generation of facility management. I just got to throw the tagline in there for you guys.
Yeah, great.
But no, there's opportunities everywhere. So like I said, there's local opportunities. So if you want to be local volunteers, we always need more of those. We have opportunities for new champions, both either locally within your groups or at the state level, because we're going to be expanding states. So there will be definitely specific states that we're looking for. And then any state that is interested, we'd like to help you through that process.
And those volunteering efforts, I guess, would be specifically to a Facilithon competition at a Skills USA
in
event,
their state.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, a State Skills USA event. Then we're looking for liaison team members. So we have several different liaison teams. They mainly focus on our key stakeholder groups, so things like colleges, students, instructors, industry, and associations. So if you have an interest in like working with other industry folks to talk about getting involved, working with other associations, we have several associations that we've been working with to help grab volunteers. And then, like I said, we've got some other positions on the national team. If folks are interested in more of a national level volunteer position, we'd love to talk to them about what opportunities are currently available.
Very cool. And, I guess the person that you're looking for, I mean, we have this kind of that ideal or that personality that you're recruiting for the FM space, but what are maybe some types of people or people in the industry that you're looking for as volunteers?
Shall I chat to that for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, so if you were, first off, we've got these liaison teams. Now, the liaison teams have been around for a couple of years. And when we talk about ways to enact your passion, right, let's be truthful as well. That if somebody just hands you a job, we're not getting paid for it. You might not do it if it doesn't move you. So this really has to do with your attributes as a person, right? If you know that this is a problem and you want to meet the next generation, then this is a great place for you to start. What if you're really good at sales and marketing and swinging deals for your company, and you want your customers to know that you're working on this problem? Probably ought to call on the industry liaison team. What if you're an academic? Maybe you've got a PhD or a master's, and you like the academic space. Well, maybe you ought to join our colleges team, because the colleges need to figure out how to connect to us And we need more of those colleges to be picking up programs and know that facility management is part of that whole built environment construction construct, right? There is the associations team. If you're involved in a particular association, like ASHE or TAFM, there you go,
Yeah.
right? TAFM or IFMA or AFE or USGBC, one of our biggest partners, that you can serve on those teams to further liaise between the organizations and us. Why do we mention particularly the associations? Because the problem is bigger than all of us. No one association could say, "Oh, we own this problem." No, they don't. We aim to be the nexus of the next gen of FM. And in order to do so, we are there to link and connect these associations and organizations together because the problem is so big. We have a great scaled solution that will solve part of this problem. But it requires that work. So if you're passionate about that on the association organizational side, there's a place for you. If you are local and you want to see local outcomes, because that's what happens with our program. It's a national program, but you get local students that are on fire about FM in your town. If you run the FM Pipelines Facilithon program in your state, you'll get them. They're there. That's a great way to be involved, particularly if you're involved locally in a particular facility management oriented chapter, right? ASHE or IFMA or AFE. So those are opportunities. You can also be involved in our student and our instructor liaison teams. Those are more focused specifically on folks that have had direct interface in the high schools already. It's its own special turf. So liaison teams are a great way to do it. And as Carolyn said, locally, if you want to start simple and just have fun running the competition, do it at your district, local district, regional, and state conference, and you'll get a local outcome. If you're in a chapter, you can ante up some scholarship dollars for those students. You can continue to have that relationship with the student as well.
Awesome. No, I think that's great. I love it that there's a lot of different ways to get involved, both at the local level and national level, and be able to see kind of the impact of what you're working on. And I think maybe the one place that we haven't talked about that's a potential way to volunteer would be with your pocketbook, right? so maybe the old time, talents, and treasures. So if you're not able to, or even if you are able to donate your time and talents, but I think you'd also would benefit from the treasures as well. So can you talk a little bit about what are some of the financial ways that people can support the organization?
Yeah, I mean, we are, like I said, we're national. We're running at nationals right now, which means we're putting that on. And we as an organization, as FM Pipeline, would like to also ensure that we are supporting all of our states that are working in that. Typical Skills USA competitions usually only worry about their national competition, but we know that the state success is going to build that national success. So we're really focused on making sure we're supporting everything as a whole. That isn't a cheap endeavor. We may have been able to do things pretty lean in the past, but if we want to really support this national expansion, we are going to look. Let's see, how would I say this? We're going to work on a national expansion. We need some financial support as well to really make it successful.
We do, and that includes budgeted corporate support. If you wish to become a corporate partner of the FM Pipeline team, that makes sense, particularly for those of you who are actually employing these people. But if you're a person that finds this to be valuable, I would contend that this was a pretty ingenious solution to a huge problem, and it's scaled. There's another opportunity, and that happens to be that little QR code sitting next to me there. Go to fmpipeline.org. That is our charity's website, and there's a donate page there. You can go on there and donate a couple dollars. And then also there's a spot within our site as well to go on and sign up as a volunteer. Lots of opportunities, and we'll call you back. We'll actually call you. Finally, you can also dial us up and talk to us if you need more information about what we're doing. There's a lot of action going on, lots of places to enact your passion, lots of ways to donate and support us, and in-kind donations. And our telephone number is 612-426-7227. That's 612-426-7227. Please make a note of it. And we're always happy to answer and chat with you and find a way where we can do something together. The problem is bigger than all of us. We're ready to be the next gen of FM.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to link all the contact information out to the website, including all of y'all's contact info as well, so everybody can see that. But I've had a lot of fun talking about the FM pipeline and the next gen of FM with y'all today, and kind of reminiscing on our Facilithon time. But any other thoughts that you might have, maybe any nuggets of advice for people that are looking to get into this industry, what might help them in their search for a career?
Oh, we're pointing to me now. Oh,
First.
I've always found the best way to get involved is to just start volunteering. Get on a committee, get on anything. Just like in any association, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So very similar to FM Pipeline. If you put into it, it will give back to you. Because we're connecting with that next gen.
Right. And
nice.
if I were a high school student considering this, having just gone through the Facilithon, or if I haven't and I've heard about it, say, go through the Facilithon, you'll find out why this is such a cool job. And then go into our site, and we'll connect you up with the right people, with the right vendors, with the right other folks around you, find you places to go. And also you start watching the Facilitopic series. That's a video series we've got on the site for instructors and students. A lot of instructors will say, what? We don't teach that here. What is that? We got to fill them in. And the Facilitopics are like 10-minute little videos that help us do that. And you as a student, if you happen to be watching this, we've got great resources for you, and a lot of great associations that are supporting us that want to reach out, and they want you to be a future member, right? Members of the Facilithon, people who compete in the Facilithon will be members of those organizations that support this program. So it's a great opportunity as a student. It's a great opportunity as employers and vendors like yourself and myself, Tim.
Awesome. Well, that's great advice. And again, appreciate y'all coming on the podcast today. Really, really enjoyed talking about the next gen of FM.
Honored to be here. Thanks, buddy.
Awesome. Well, also want to thank everyone for watching and listening to this episode of Building Value, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.